Finally, the Fantastic Four has joined the MCU, so it's time to take a look at their movie Fantastic Four: The First Steps. Of course, it is directed by Max Shackman, starring Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Bachrach, as well as, of course, Joseph Quinn. This movie is about our four heroes who are forced to take on protector duties of their world as a family, but they have to go up against a ravenous space god named Galactus who seeks to eat their world. So it's time to dive into this movie and help you decide whether or not it's the right one to watch as a Christian. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I am your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. Fantastic Four: First Steps is rated PG-13 for some action violence, as well as some brief language. So we're going to dive into any convictions you may have that may prevent you from watching this movie, any theological themes present within it, and wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on the film. Without further ado, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. If you're brand new here, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus. Ultimately, we are a resource to help you figure out whether or not the Fantastic Four: First Steps aligns with the convictions that God has given you. This is a superhero movie, so the violence and gore here is going to be on par with other superhero films. Each of our 4 leads here have some sort of superpowers. Ben Grimm, of course, is the Thing, and he is not only very strong, but extremely durable. Sue Storm, of course, has the power of invisibility, and a few other things here as well. Of course, Mr. Fantastic can stretch beyond normal human capability, and Johnny Storm can turn himself into a fireball. So they do all have superhero action that is a part of this film, and superpowers. It's all a part of this movie. But there is also some explosions, some fire, not just from Johnny, and a few moments of just destruction of cities or buildings and some of those things, especially when you have, of course, a giant space god like Galactus. You also do see the destruction of a planet as well in the film. But there is some punching, kicking, some smashing. There is also some blaster fire as well. It's about average what you would expect from not just a Marvel movie, but a PG-13 action superhero-esque film. So that being said, we're going to give this a 3 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is lust, and because it deals with a family, they deal with some family dynamics. The biggest one of sorts is the fact that Sue Storm in this movie is pregnant. And so they deal with, of course, the challenges a little bit of pregnancy, and the biggest thing to note is that there is a scene of which Sue Storm does give birth, and within that scene there is a bit of a naked baby, but there is no explicit content that is contained within this film, even in that scene together. There also is a reference of a certain character being sexy from time to time, namely by Johnny Storm, but that is about it, along with some kissing. All that to say, we are going to give this a 2 out of 5 just to be on the safe side here. Our next category is substances, and there is no drugs contained within the film, although there is some references to some different elements and things of that sort. At the same time, too, there also is some wine that's shown throughout the film, but there really isn't any consuming of either item, no abuse of either item. So, to be honest, I don't think there really is anything to necessarily worry about in this film. We are going to give this a 0 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is profanity, and even though it is part of the PG-13 rating, there's only 2 uses of language within this film. Hell is used, and then the SH word is used, or rather, bull. That is a part of the film. There also is a few uses of God and Jesus as reactionary statements rather than praise and worship like you would normally rather have. Those are a part of the film, but we are going to give this a 2 out of 5. This is the lowest category for profanity I've ever seen in a Marvel film. Our last category is intense/horror scenes. This is not a horror movie, which means there are no horror images contained within this film, but it does deal with some really intense, larger-than-life things. Like I mentioned earlier, you do see a planet that is completely destroyed, and you do hear a little bit later on some recordings of some of those people who are struggling to survive the ravenous hunger of Galactus. Speaking of Galactus, he also can be very scary, especially for younger viewers. He is a giant being, and so he towers over everything, and he also has a pretty creepy voice. A cool one, but a creepy voice. And so they may be a little terrifying for younger viewers. That being said, along with him does come destruction and chaos of the city, and so there are some sequences that just buildings collapse and things of that sort. There also are some scenes in which he kind of plays with the Fantastic Four a little bit. And of course, the other big thing here is the fact that this movie deals with Franklin Richards as kind of a centerpiece, and so there is talks about kind of the child being threatened, certain characters wanting the child, some of that type stuff. Either way, this baby is threatened a good amount in this film. But like I said, there are definitely some intense moments of action in here as well, and just some intense stuff that happens throughout the film, pretty on par with the rest of the MCU. So we are going to give this a 3 out of 5 in this category. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be a 10 out of 25 here. This is by far the lowest rated PG-13 film we've done here on the channel so far, but also at the same time, one of the more lower rated MCU films. Obviously, the biggest reason for that is the lack of language that is used within the film, but there are also some more kind of lustful stuff contained within the film, not necessarily lust in a more sinful way. That being said, though, there is still some pretty moderate action. There is some moderate violence and gore. There's some moderate intense sequences. No horror, though, as per usual with the MCU. All that to say, if anything we talked about compromises your convictions in any way, shape, or form, don't worry about watching the movie. No movie is more important than your relationship with Jesus, so if Fantastic Four First Steps doesn't fit that, that's totally okay. That leads us beautifully into our next topic as we dive into some theological themes that are present within this movie. And I'll be honest, while there isn't anything explicitly about Jesus, the Bible, Christianity, any of that is contained within the film, the church, none of that. There's a big, heavy emphasis on family. Fun fact, Fantastic Four is Marvel's first family. Fantastic Four has always been a big thing on family, and that is emphasized throughout this film. Obviously, the family is something that is designed by God. God designed the family, and families look different for everybody. But either way, God designed families. God designed families for a man and a woman to join together in marriage to not only fulfill and represent the covenant Jesus and the church have, but also at the same time too for enjoyment, for community, for belonging. And so all of these things are bits and pieces of what God designed family to be. And so it's cool to see, like, just throughout this film, the center of family, and particularly obviously with the immediate family of Sue and Reed and of course their child. And that's just really cool to see. Again, it's not explicitly a Christian theme, but God did design the family unit. That leads us into our next topic as we dive into what I think of Fantastic Four First Steps. So here's the thing. Sorry, I had to get that out of the way. I've been waiting to make that joke for a while, and I apologize in advance for the amount of humor that may or may not be contained within this, specifically puns. I apologize in advance, or not. But in all seriousness, this movie hit all the right notes that I was looking for. I was very much curious to see what they were going to do about the family dynamic of Marvel's first family. And, I essentially wanted a family fun movie that, for all things and all intents and purposes, I wanted so different than The Incredibles, because the amount of jokes I've seen on the internet and the amount of comparisons I've seen is just too much. And I enjoy The Incredibles, but I also enjoy Fantastic Four. And so I wanted them to be different. I wanted them to both still have their family dynamics, and Fantastic Four had all of that. They had that family feel. They also had some great banter between Johnny and Ben, which is by far my favorite duo in this movie. I love it. It was great in the 2005 version. It's also really solid in this one. And also, I just wanted some great relationship, husband-wife dynamics between Reed and Sue, and we got that as well. It very much felt like they were truly a family unit, and that primary thing number one on my list was checked off for this movie. I'll be honest, I was definitely worried about the casting choices when it came out. No disrespect to any of the actors, I just wasn't sure how it was going to play out. But I will say this, I was pleasantly surprised, and I am glad they casted each of these people the way they did. Pedro Pascal, of course, is a great actor. He's been in a lot of things and very much seems to be like the big thing at the moment, the big movie star, kind of like Jim Carrey or Will Smith in the 1990s. Pedro Pascal seems to be that guy for the 2020s. So pretty cool to see, but Pedro was really solid as Reed Richards. It's a much different character for him than we've seen with something like Joel or even Din Djarin or obviously Acacius in Gladiator 2. It's a much different role for him, which is nice. I like that it's a different role for him. I think he is a fantastic, pun intended, addition into the MCU. Ebon Bachrach obviously has done a lot of different things, particularly in shows. A little bit in Andor, obviously a big part of the Bear, and I liked him as Ben Grimm. That to be said, CGI here, pretty good overall. I don't really have much to complain about in how Ben looks. He's a lot more lively in this one and also very comic accurate, which is nice. I liked it a lot. While I do wish he did have a little more gruff in his voice, I think he played the Thing, Ben Grimm, very well, and I enjoyed his performance. That leads me to Joseph Quinn, of course, another rising star here. He was really great in this film. Obviously a much different Johnny Storm than what we're used to, not as cocky, but he still has some of that parts within the film. It's just not overindulgent as, say, the 2005 version of the film, but I do enjoy his performance here. I think he's very believable, and of course, like I said, the banter between Ben and Johnny was just really great. But the highlight here for me is Vanessa Kirby. She played this character so well. I wanted to say fantastic there. I really did, but it genuinely was a fantastic performance, and she blew me away in how well she played this character. I thought she was by far not only the best performance of the film, but she also was the best character and best version of Sue Storm we have ever gotten. I can't imagine anyone else in the role. Even before casting was like announced and stuff, she was the one who I wanted for this role. I'm so happy she's in the MCU and she's playing Sue Storm, and I really enjoyed her performance. I also enjoyed Shala Bal, who joined in, and Galactus, who is very much not a big storm cloud, and he is all comic booky, and Ralph Ineson did a really great job with this character, and Julia Gardner did really great with Shala Bal. Overall, the cast-wise, it is a really well-casted movie, and that is good, but it also feels like these characters truly are these characters, which is good. That's hard to do at times, especially for comic book movies, and so they all felt like they, for the most part, leaped off the comics. Another part why they leaped off the comics is the retro futurism that is a big part of this film. I really enjoyed it. I loved it a lot. The bright blues, the retro future 60s Clash technology stuff is all just really cool. And another thing that worked really well is the score. Of course, Michael Giacchino, absolutely a fantastic composer, and he takes a wonderful piece of music in this one. Thoroughly enjoy it. But I will say this, it is a visually stunning film. The CG here is really good. Like I said, the 60s retro futuristic aesthetic works really, really great. And overall, it is a fun, family friendly film. It is by far, I think, the most family friendly film Marvel has put out. And the other thing too is you don't have to worry about any sort of homework with this one. That's the one thing about the MCU right now. And while I will say this, I don't mind it for me because I've done most of the homework. I know for people who are just starting out into Marvel, it can be very difficult to say, well, I have to watch this and this in order to watch this, you know? You don't have to do that with this film. This is one that you can just go into, enjoy. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to really know all that much about the Fantastic Four. They explain it for you. And this is not a origin story film, although I think it would be cool to see it. It doesn't need it because we've seen that origin twice now. And I love just the family dynamic. I love the visuals. I love the music, and overall, it's a really solid film. Now, I will say this, my biggest critique of the film is definitely its pacing. It was very, very quick, especially at the beginning of the film, where it's just like plot point, plot point, plot point, point, you know? Try saying that 5 times fast. But it really was just moving a little too quick for my liking. I think we could have sat in a few more things. And it could have been maybe just a little bit longer. I didn't mind the length time. It's a bit shorter on in terms of any of the other MCU films. But I think just adding maybe 7-10 more minutes would have been a-okay. But overall, an enjoyable film. This, I think, by far is my favorite Fantastic Four film. I think it just overall hit the right notes that I wanted it to. It was a fun film, enjoyable. I had a smile on my face for many of the different moments. I laughed. It was an enjoyable time. So overall, I'm giving it an 8.6 out of 10. I quite liked it. I think it is an enjoyable film, and like I said, by far my favorite Fantastic Four movie, and I think this definitely is by far the best Fantastic Four film, and I'd definitely say it is the best MCU film of the year. So it is a 10 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It is a 8.6 out of 10 in our review. Those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things about this movie in the comments, and while you're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribing for us. Joining our community here on YouTube just helps to send us out to the algorithm, allows us to reach more Christians to help them utilize their convictions in the movies and shows they watch. That being said, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. It truly means the absolute world to us. But before you go, there's a few video recommendations over here that YouTube is suggesting to you, one of which was the previous Marvel movie to be released this year, The Thunderbolts. Join us over there. I'll see you all in the next one.